So we're going to be covering revamping yarn today using a yarn construction known as crepe. A crepe yarn is a 3-ply yarn with 2 singles plied together in one direction and a third singles plied in the opposite direction. Crepe is my favorite type of handspun yarn for revamping a dissatisfying 2-ply yarn. Here is the inspiration for this yarn we are revamping. It's based on this tarot card here. It's okay, but it's a little thin and lacking. This is not yet set, which is why it looks a bit unfinished. I thought it would be a fun example of a crepe-constructed yarn. I have no idea what this will end up like, or if I'll even like it, but let's give it a whirl. Pun intended. So if you're not sure what a crepe yarn is, I'm going to try to give an example here using this roving. So the white ones here, we've spun these Z twist, so to the right. So that means to ply this into yarn, it has to be plied to the left. So let me just give it a bit of a twist here to see if we can just sort of give an example. So just pretend that this is a plied 2-ply yarn, plied to the left with S twist. So now what we are going to do is we're going to take a third singles, but this one has been spun, also S, not Z, so it's been plied to the left, spun to the left. And Mr. Peanut is coming to visit us. So this is now going to be plied to the 2-ply yarn in the other direction, Z. It's going to put the Z twist in. So we go round and around like so, and you'll probably notice what will end up happening is the twist comes all out of that 2-ply yarn because it's being plied in that direction that it was originally spun. So essentially what I have to do with this yarn that I'm revamping is I'm going to have to add some extra twist to the 2-ply. So essentially I am going to over-ply this yarn, giving a lot of extra twist to compensate for the fact that it's going to be, oh yes, buddy. Yeah, he's not going to let me do this, guys. I hope he's entertaining. So this is now going to compensate when we go ahead and ply this a second time to the right in a Z twist. And I doubt I can get this to look, oh boy, okay. I'm trying here, guys, I'm trying. Okay, you get the idea. So now you're going to have 2 plies going in one direction with that third ply going in the opposite direction. So it's a really kind of neat looking yarn. It's not your typical 3-ply where all of the yarn is twisted in one direction. So you get some interesting construction this way. I wanted to show you next. You've probably heard of something called a bubble crepe. It's a very popular textured yarn. Basically what a bubble crepe is a 1 fat singles plied to a thin singles, then replied again to another thin singles. And typically you would do the thin singles in the same color. Black looks really sharp. And when you're finished with the ply, it's like the black part locks together and the thicker or the fat singles will sort of pop out on the side. So it's this really neat rick-rack effect, kind of zigzags in. And of course, I can't really show it well with this roving. Sorry about that. But hopefully you kind of get an idea. I'm going to get on to adding extra twist to this 2-ply yarn, and we'll get creping it. See how it turns out. I see my cat friend here is very zen and very happy with his roving. So I've run the original 2-ply yarn through my wheel, adding extra S twist or to the left. The original direction it was plied. So 2 Z singles plied together with S twist. Essentially it's now over plied. This will help compensate when we add the third ply in the opposite direction. On my e-spinner earlier I spun some S singles in black superwash merino. So that's going to be our third ply. And this is all now going to be plied Z or Z. This is why we added the extra twist into the original yarn. The over twist will balance out when we spin in the other direction. So I'm keeping this on my e-spinner and I'm just going to untension it and use it kind of like a Kate, because if I don't have enough, I can just keep spinning straight on the e-spinner, rejoin to my project and keep going. It makes things go a little bit quicker. So we're going to remove this from the wheel, put it here on our Kate, and start plying. Fingers crossed we get something really cool looking. Okay, progress report. So I've run out of the S-twist black singles, and here I am so far. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's really hard to tell when a yarn is on the bobbin just what it's going to look like finished because it's under tension. But it's intriguing. We'll see what it looks like. The black and white portion has that typical crepey rickrack pattern, and everything else is 2 plies of one color spun in one direction, and then of course the S ply, or S singles I should call it. So I spun a little bit of more black on my e-spinner. We're going to add to that and see where we end up. Okay, I also wanted to mention that as I'm spinning this or plying this, I'm doing so much like I do when I do a spiral ply. So the one singles S ply, I'm putting the tension on and allowing the already 2 ply yarn to wrap around it. Okay, more progress. Now we just have this light aqua section left to do, and then it will be done. So I am going to get on to spinning some more black singles with an S twist. Hey there, welcome to my couch. Just wanted to do a little aside that this is a superwash merino that I'm spinning for the one S twist singles that I'm using in this yarn. I dyed this myself. I really like to dye my own roving. I find it much more economical. I can get whatever I want, whenever I want, and not have to order it, wait for it to come in, or source it. So for this particular roving, what I did was I used my crock pot, which is my favorite way to dye. I don't have to worry about watching it or I'll burn down the house or ruin the fiber. So I just put hot water into the crock pot. To that, I added about 2.5 tablespoons of citric acid, stirred that up. And then I also added salt. Now what salt does is that it will make sure that the dye will evenly distribute and give you an even color in your roving. If you don't want that, don't add salt, and you'll get like a variegated sort of color where it'll be dark and it will just get lighter, 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 lighter. So this keeps it really nice and even. So again, I don't measure. I'm not really big on measuring. I think I put about it was less than half a tablespoon in. So then the dye. So I have my citric acid dye. There's many different brands out there. They're all really, really great. You put it in. I put 1.5 tablespoons in. And then I just take the end of the roving and start dipping it until I notice that the water on the top is looking a little grayish. It's not black anymore. So that means the black is being absorbed into the roving and most of it is in there. So I don't want to put any more in. Then I put the lid on, come back in about 20 minutes or so, see if I need to add more citric acid, if there is dye still kind of laying around. And then I leave it. I'll leave it for like an hour or two and then come back. Oh, look at that. All the dye is absorbed, or 98% of the dye is absorbed. You can tell, just get a spoon and spoon the water if the water looks fairly clear. I unplug it and I leave it overnight. I come back the next day and rinse it out. It's so much easier this way. I'm really busy. I'm usually doing like 10 different things at once. So this way I can get my dyeing done and not have to be just watching the pot over and over and over again. So little tip for you, if you want to dye some black roving, this seems to work for me. I don't know how much you're really getting. It's a fair bit. It's at least 4 ounces, if not more, that you get out of it. I guess every dye would be different. It's certainly enough for a project and enough to have. I may not use all of this actually in this yarn that I'm doing, but that's fantastic. I can use it later. And this is superwash. I'm not really sure why I decided to do superwash with this yarn. I don't typically spin it, to be honest, but this is superwash. So even bonus, you don't even have to worry about when you're rinsing it out that it's going to felt in any way. So there you go, little tip for you. It's done. Finally finished. I've been working on it off and on for the last few days. And again, on the bobbin, who knows what this is going to look like. I had a little bit left. I was actually surprised that I used up all of the black roving that I dyed. There isn't enough here to warrant me to go back and dye anymore, so I'll just keep this as odds and ends and extras. Let's get this dude nitty-nuttied up here, and we'll see what he looks like. I'm thinking it's going to be a bit of a snarled mess. Well, let's see. All right, I'm back. I was getting ready to skein this, so I took the bob and put it here on my Kate, and then I just wasn't liking it. I feel like the black ply is way too loose, so I'm going to run it through the wheel one more time. We'll see how it looks. All right, more twist added. I didn't add any extra twist to probably the last 30%. So when you're dealing with bobbins this big, remember when it is going on to the wheel while you're plying, there's a lot less revolutions needed, smaller space, I guess I'm trying to say, for the twist to occur. So the twist was actually perfect on about the last 30%. It wasn't so loose. This is a mistake that I make even after spinning for 10 years, not to add more twist as this bobbin gets filled and the revolutions are a lot wider. I'm sure there's a more technical way of saying that, but there you have it. It's going around like a larger revolution, and therefore it doesn't have as much twist as it does on the smaller part here. So whenever I have that problem, all I do is I run it back through the wheel again really quickly, add some extra twist. It's really easy to fix. Okay, so now to bite my nails while I go and skein this and see how much of a twisted mess it is. OMG, okay, my shoulder hurts. 186 wraps around my nitty-nutty. So what is that, like 372 yards? Yikes. And it barely fits on my Lendrum nitty-nutty. I do have a bigger one, an Ashford one. I think it's in meters instead of yards. But I find because it's so big, it's really hard to wrap around. And my wheel also has like a yarn winder type thing, but it doesn't count how many yards. So I like to count manually as I go. So we have like 372 yards of yarn. And now the verdict is, well, the verdict's not in yet. We have to go and wash and potentially whack this. We'll see what happens when I take it off of here, what it's going to look like. Stay tuned. Not bad at all considering the amount of left-right twist and added twists. Now he just needs a bath. Okay, let's fill this sink up and give this guy a wet set. He's rather large, so I am going to give him a soak for a little while. I'm not sure how long. I don't usually pay attention, just whenever I get back to it. Normally I'd use Synthropol or TNA soap to do my soaking, but this time I'm going to use Blue Dawn, just as an example that you could certainly use this and it's quite acceptable. Easy to get, fairly affordable as well for wet setting. So I've added some extra ties on this guy too. You can see here that just helps so that it doesn't tangle when it gets jostled around in the sink. And even though this is superwash, I still will try to be a little careful with it. All right, I'm just going to start slowly dipping it in, a little bit at a time. This is actually a very small sink. It's a bar sink, but it's perfect for doing a skein of yarn, so works for me. And oh yeah, okay, I forgot that Don is actually way more sudsy than Synthropol, so he's having a bubble bath, lucky him. We'll let this soak and I'll come back and check on it in a little bit. Okay, so it's been about 30 minutes or so. Let's just see how this is doing. Still very sudsy, so I have to do a little extra rinsing than usual, I think. Dawn does rinse out really nice and clear, so that's not a problem. So just drain here, and I'm going to lift it up by this little tab. And I'm just going to give it a rinse underneath some hot tap water to get all the suds out, make sure all the soap is gone. It's a nice hot day outside today, so I'm going to hang this out to dry. My plan is I'm going to hang it first to see if it hangs nice and straight, and if not, then I'll give it a little thwack on the side of the house 3-4 times and then rehang it again. Just going to take my time here, give some gentle squeezes, make sure all the soap is gone. Now I'm just going to take it and just gently squeeze it out here. Oh, okay, there's still some soap. All right, I'm going to give it another rinse. Okay, that should be just about good right there. So another gentle squeeze here. Now I'm going to go hang this outside. I'm not going to bother filming this. I have other examples of how I dry my yarn or thwack it. You can check out some of the other videos. But yeah, we'll get this hung and see how it looks. And then next time you see me, we'll reveal the finished product. Let's take a look at this finished yarn. So again, this is doing like a crepe construction. 2 singles plied in one direction and then adding extra twist, another singles in the opposite direction and then plying it again. So zigzag, zigzag. And with this one, so I started with a yarn that I was kind of like, don't really like, it's really thin. Now this is what we have. So if you're not a fan of the zebra-ing or barber poling, you're going to be like, that's so ugly, but feels really nice. You know, over 300 yards here, really soft. And the only difference is the part that doesn't have the barber poling is of course the part that has that signature rick-racking, because there's 2 singles that are black, so they kind of crisscross, which is really cool. If you ever spin this, it's one of my favorite things to spin because you watch it sort of lock in place and it's just like, oh, that's so cool. So that is the yarn. What do you think of it? Is it something you'd like? Would you try doing a crepe constructed yarn if you had the chance? Or is this just like, nah, it ain't for me? I won't be offended. You can leave me a comment, whatever you want to say. It certainly is hanging straight, which is good. When you're doing all that sort of spinning in one direction, then the next direction, you always wonder, but yeah. And I just gave it like 3 good thwacks as usual on the side of the house. Wasn't going to do it, but how it was hanging outside, I was like, oh, I just want to whack it. And yeah, then it was hanging nice and straight after good whack. So I just wanted to show you too. This is the first crepe yarn, bubble crepe that I ever made. And there is problems with the construction of this. Like it didn't quite lock in place and zigzag as it should have in some areas. I have no idea if you can see, but it's still a really cool yarn. And I don't use this. I actually have this on display in my studio because I think it's just really, really nice. But my favorite one, I did this a few years ago, and actually I spun it and put it on Instagram as I was going, when I was on Instagram. And this is my favorite bubble crepe. Isn't that cool? Just love the construction of this. I've just been keeping it in kind of enjoying it. I have no idea what to make with it, if I should weave with it or knit with it or what. It's just really cool to look at. I mean, sometimes I wonder if you could even just wear it. Let's see. Whoop. Like, you know, almost makes a cool cowl on its own. Let's see if I can get it off here. Whoop. Good thing I didn't do my hair, huh? So yeah, that is a typical bubble crepe, or at least how it came out for me. Is this something you would like to see me do? Like, I could try doing one from stage by stage and recording it. Recording my spinning, I haven't figured out quite how to do it so that you get really good angles, but I would be happy to try it if anyone would like to learn how to do this. I know sometimes, at least for me, it's easier to see someone do it than read it in a book. I do have this in one of my spinning books, which is how I learned this technique, but it would be certainly easier if someone had shown me. It took a while, it took quite a while actually, but this is finally the finished result, and I quite liked. So yeah. Crepe-constructed yarns. But the whole point of why I wanted to make this video is this: if you spin a yarn, you're like, I kind of don't like that. There's nothing really wrong with it, but you know, I have one of two options. I can over dye it, which is a lot of fun as well, or I can reconstruct it. And creping is a very easy way to reconstruct the yarn. And all I did was just take black, spin it in the opposite direction, the singles, and then reply it. Just don't forget to add extra twists to everything. And go for it. So have you ever made a crepe yarn? How did you find it? Do you like them? Drop me a line in the comments, or if you're getting this video on my blog, I'd love to get your comments. I know in this day and age people don't usually leave a lot of comments, at least not for me, but I love to chat with you. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.